Hi, I'm Nathan. I go by Peteparker, and every week I do comic book reviews because that's the rule around my house. I gotta review them online if I'm going to keep buying them. So this review is going to be for X-Men Legacy number 250. This is a super duper giant size issue with 2 stories in it and an entire reprint of what I believe to be the original New Mutants series number 27 right here. I'm not actually going to review that because I didn't actually read it. The art kind of put me off, and I'm sure it's a good story or else I wouldn't have been included here, and it's probably even pertinent to what was going on here. But at the same time, I really don't care about Legion, and the art is so weird that it's tough to get through. So I'll be reviewing the first 2 stories in here. They're both written by Mike Carey. The first one is drawn by Koi Pham, Tom Palmer, and Marte Gracia. The second one is penciled by Steve Kurth, Jay Liston, and colored by Brian Reber. So there you go. And it's the cool thing about these 2 stories is that they're actually integrated. There's a point in the first story where the second story takes place, and then the first story continues again. Now, they didn't lay it out in the book that way, so you don't go from one story, stop in the middle to do something else, and then go to the next, but you read the whole first story, understanding that there's a little point missing, and then right after that you get that little point explained to you. And that's pretty interesting too, by itself. So the basic story, there's a few stories going on in this at the same time, as you can imagine, is that after Age of X, when Legion put the world back the way it was before, there were some leftovers, more or less. There was a handful of people who remained changed and weren't reverted back to who they were, what they looked like before. And there's also a few extra people in the world beyond that. So what they do in this story is they investigate why. A little bit more background, you'll have to forgive me. Legion's got multiple personality disorder, thousands of personalities inside him, and each one of those personalities has its own set of powers and abilities and its own personality. It's like a separate person almost inside of him, hence the name Legion. He's like an army in of himself. So Dr. Nemesis and somebody else, I forget his name, Madison Jeffries maybe, made a little punch box where he can dial up each one of those thousands of people and use their powers for a few minutes before they take over and then they're shut down or whatever. So he keeps his own personality, keeps control of himself, but gets to tap into all these powers that he has, which is alright. It's kind of cool. So while they're trying to test that thing, they find some blank spots. He enters numbers that they know are there, they know are mapped personalities or whatever, and they happen to come up blank. So what they find out in this issue is that those people, when Legion put the world back together, he left those aspects of himself out in the world as real people, which is kind of interesting. You never really heard about that before, making them into real people that they have to track down, much like Moira was. The Moira that created the Age of X universe was her own person, her own separate person, being or whatever. So after that, they're going to track down those 5 or 6 handful of Legion's personalities, the people associated with that, and they're going to make them re-merge with Legion because they can't have them out in the world creating havoc and chaos or whatever. It's not exactly 100% clear why they need to include why they need to reabsorb those characters, because they don't seem to be hurting anybody yet. It's not like they're attacking the world or causing trouble or anything. I think it's more that they're worried that these are aspects of Legion's personality, and Legion is so powerful that they could potentially be dangerous in the future. So, yeah, even Cyclops just says, if these things are loose in the world, then they have to be dealt with. So they don't really say why they have to be dealt with, they just have to be dealt with. So you get this team, which includes probably, everybody on the cover here. There's Magneto and Rogue and Frenzy and Gambit and Legion and Professor X. They're all going after these aspects of Legion, trying to get them to reabsorb them And in the process of this, Frenzy is stuck in her Age of X ways. She wants to be a hero and well accepted and respected, but she also has trouble reining in her temper. She tends to hurt people really bad or kill them because that was acceptable in the Age of X universe. They were coming up against an enemy all the time that was trying to kill them, so it was kill or be killed. So they have to kind of rein her back a little bit. The best part about this story is who they go after first. Now, the last time that they mentioned all these different aspects, personalities of legions, it seemed really lame. Each one of these characters seemed kind of been done before, kind of lame. I don't know. It's hard to explain because, all you got was a picture of them and then their code name. There was nothing else. So this character's name is Time Sink, and let's see if I can find a good picture of him. And basically, he has the ability to manipulate time. He can move in every dimension, which makes him awfully hard to track down and catch, because once they've got him cornered, he can just move through time in a different dimension or make things happen that way and escape again. And so they finally track him down, of course, and Legion eventually absorbs him. What it was really hard to believe is that they not only tricked this character, but Legion used some of his dial-up powers against this character. I would think that if it's an aspect of Legion's personality, then he's generally going to know everything that's going to happen in that respect, and it's not going to be really easy to fix them. The Time Sink character, who has like blue and red hands, that's kind of him right there. If you can see that, probably not. The bad part about his powers, he demonstrates his powers in a lot of ways. In the future, present or whatever, Gambit throws cards at him, so while he's in the past, he pulls those cards from the future and flings them or directs them at Magneto. Magneto shoots a pulse, EMP pulse at him, and he directs that straight into the past, which takes out this entire town. He freezes Frenzy in place, makes her pause in one place, which the outline there is really cool in the artwork. And then the rest of his showing his powers are really just threats, and the threats are really cool. Like, for instance, he says to Rogue that he can speed up time around her until she becomes dust. She goes to bones and then to dust. That'd be cool to see, right? Even if it was for something else. The ground underneath her, I don't know, something, right? And then there's another time that he talks about he stabs somebody, Legion, I think, in the back, and he says, now all you got to do is rush to the hospital, but I'm going to make that wound stay in you for like 100 years in milliseconds or nanoseconds. So that's really cool too, but of course it didn't happen either. I mean, those are they're really cool ideas, and it was sucked that you couldn't see them demonstrated. Oh, here's another cool aspect of his power. When Gambit was attacking him after he flashed all those cards back, he pushed Gambit through all these times in his life where he was first put down psychologically and then punched repeatedly by different people. So he basically felt all those punches all over again and was knocked out right away. That was a really cool aspect too. So here's this character that we get to see for one story that has really cool abilities and really cool ways of making them happen, and now he's gone. Too bad, right? I didn't really like the character so much, but the powers that he was doing and the ideas that he had associated with this time power that a lot of people don't use, it's really unfortunate that it all got crammed into one half of one story kind of thing, and then the character's gone more or less forever. So then the second story, which you didn't really see during the first story, they alluded to it, and then you get and then you get it in the second story. It was really confusing at first, and they tell you in the first block that it's backwards, like the story of what's happening between Rogue and Rachel Gray or Rachel Summers, whoever it is, Marvel Girl, who is left over from Age of X. She's Revenant or whatever. Um, the story of what happens to him, they say it's backwards as you go through here. But I probably got like 2 or 3 pages through it before I was like, this makes no sense at all. And then I read backwards, and it made total sense. So when you read this story, you got to skip to the very end of it and then read all the way backwards, and it makes perfect sense. Maybe not the very end, maybe not all the way backwards, because there's a point when that story's over and they talk about where Rachel is now, Rachel, Polaris, Havoc, all those characters, and how they're going to go get to him. And then Rachel wakes up on some ship controlled by some people who have a gun to her face or something. Told her they killed her friends, which is probably not true. But so it's kind of alluding to the fact that the X-Men generally know where their space X-Men, Havoc and Polaris and Rachel are, and they're going to go after them at some point. So this is the first time they know where they are, kind of thing. So that's the 2 stories in this. Like I said, there's a lot here. It's a really thick book, a lot of dense story in here. And then you get the full New Mutant story at the end, too. It's really different. I had a hard time deciding if I was going to buy this because I don't really like Legion. I don't really like the history that he has along with him. A lot of these characters I like, and a lot of them I could take or leave. Like Magneto's awesome and Rogue is awesome, but a lot of the things that have been done with them haven't really done anything, moved the character forward at all, it feels like. So, and this is $4.99 too, which is a whole dollar more, $5 for this book, which I wish they would have had an alternate one where they just left this story out and it was $1 cheaper or $2 cheaper. That would have been much, much better. But of course, I did end up buying it, so there you go. I like the powers demonstrated here. I like the ideas associated with the use of time powers here. I generally like the way that the team fought this extra character, but the whole over-encompassing story is kind of boring, maybe not boring, but I don't like it. Maybe it's just because it's Legion, maybe it's just because it's random personality characters floating out in the world somehow, and they're going after them because they need to be dealt with and not because of any real logical reason. They're not doing anything, right? So I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I really did like the powers. I wish I could give it a higher grade for that. I am interested in Polaris and Havoc and Marvel Girl coming back at some point, but not enough for it to be a really awesome story about how that connection is being made or anything. And it's just the kind of the beginning of everything. So we'll have to see how this turns out, how this team of X-Men hunters hunting down these aspects of a personality one after another really goes. Maybe all of their powers will be very interesting and I'll be buying all of it because of that, but it's hard to say. So there you go, 3 out of 5, X-Men Legacy, number 250, giant sized, $4.99, or you can just listen to my review and probably get all about it. Get all the story out of it. Anyway, thanks for listening. You can follow me on YouTube to get all of my weekly reviews at Spidey207, or check out Peteparker on the Marvel Database, on iFanboy, and Comic Find to look for the rest of my reviews. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.